Mm. Hi everyone. If you are watching this on catch up, we yeah, unfortunately could not get on to the Facebook Live. I think Bon said that it's been an issue for lots of other businesses as well. So we're sending apologies. We did sit and try very hard to get the technology to work, but here we are. So on catch up, please feel free to message me via the Facebook page if you have any questions. But today is just a little chat, a little time out to reflect on a skill that I think is sometimes comes really natural to us as human beings. And sometimes there's a lot of pushback, or it's much more difficult, depending on our past, on our trauma, on just, our limiting beliefs. And we are talking today about the skill, I would call it resilience. We're talking about resilience. And I think it's just an interesting piece because I was really inspired by some of the stories that we've been following around the world from the Olympics. Can't help but sort of maybe know the name Simone Biles, obviously American gymnast, or if you haven't followed it at all, she's not long published a Netflix series. But I wanted to just like start with her as a really interesting example of resilience. This woman who, oh, hey. I'm just going to keep talking, but I'll get chatting and say hello if your camera comes on in a minute. I was just saying that we're going to talk about resilience in the session, and that I was really inspired by some of the stories of our Olympians. And Simone Biles is one that kind of came to mind. So just to kind of introduce the idea, if you haven't kind of come across her, someone who, trauma in her past, lots and lots of, limiting beliefs based on family situations, being in foster care, eventually being adopted by grandparents, parents not necessarily being what she had expected. And here she goes on and finds a love for gymnastics, and makes it as, they call her the GOAT, the greatest of all time. And I just think it's really interesting and powerful to see how like she changed her story from maybe something that could have been maybe like a ho hum, the statistics around young people, and how life unfolds from a story of being in care is not always one like Simone Biles. And I just found it really interesting to kind of reference her. And I think it's because not only is she somebody that is, she's done moves that only men have done. She's got many gymnastics moves that are now named after her. She's worked that hard and with that level of grit. But I also, in the previous Olympics, she pulled out. So not the one in Paris, but she pulled out in the previous Olympics. And I don't know if anyone follows her story. And she was probably one of the first, I would say, young people, like in her late 20s, looking at the world going, my mental health is not there, and I need to work on that. And I think for me, that was one of the first times that I really recognized resilience in a new way. It wasn't just somebody who fell and got back up, which is definitely a great example of resilience, but it was somebody actually who stopped and said, like, hey, like I need to do something about where my head is at, where my well-being is at, things are not adding up. And it was affecting her. She, the movement in her body weren't marrying up. But she just said that like there was a time when she thought speaking about therapy or doing any sort of work in that area was something that was a weakness, but now she sees it as her superpower. And the reason that she was able to come back, not only, in Paris to break and win, I don't know, however many records and gold medals and all sorts. If you haven't come across her Netflix kind of documentary piece is really interesting. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of start with a little bit of an anecdotal reference to resilience, because I think someone like Simone, maybe not, our story might not be one of like winning Olympic golds, but I think every single one of us has stories or a really big story of resilience. And so I challenge you in our session today as we kind of explore what is resilience, ways in which we can kind of practice resilience during different moments of like struggle and challenge. But I really want you to reflect on like, if you were to write your story of resilience, you're bouncing back, you're, finding strength, your mental toughness, what would your story sound like? What would your little documentary be? Because I bet it would be just as empowering, just as inspiring as, Simone, whether it's gold medals or not. I think any story of somebody getting back up, pushing through, finding somewhere to go, accessing, learning, growing, developing, all of it is resilience. You being part of this course is essentially being resilient. So it excites me to talk about this today and to really get you to reflect. Can you rewrite your story less about, the darkness of maybe the trauma that you've faced and the limiting beliefs that have been created, and more about how you are right now creating that resilience? You are a story of resilience. And how does that continue to unfold? So yeah, that's just my little starting point in our session today. So talking just briefly about resilience, in sort of the bare bones, I suppose. Whether you, hiya, I'm just going to keep moving through some of the content, but we're talking about resilience tonight. So welcome. But whether you go through a breakup, I don't know, lose a job, fail a test, experience grief that's really, deep, live through any number of setbacks, experiencing adversity is unfortunately just part of being human. So as you experience kind of life's challenges, being resilient, and having skills of resilience, and maybe picking out what some of those skills are, things that you already do, things that you might be able to access when you might have a situation that feels harder to kind of find that resilience in. But having skills that help us to adapt really do make a difference. And being resilient allows you to continue to move through that human experience and challenge. So the best part of all of this is being resilient, or resiliency is actually a skill that can be cultivated and grown. It's not necessarily something that has to be innate in all of us. It's things, that we can start to create little habits or trying new things when challenges arise. If we are feeling stuck, we are feeling, that it is difficult to move through. So yeah, I think that resiliency is quite interesting and such a powerful skill for us to kind of just discuss and cultivate. So what is resilience and why is it important? Resilience refers to, I would suppose from like Forbes Health or any sort of definition, this is kind of the keywords that I'd found, but it just refers to an individual's ability to recover from life's challenges and hardships, such as trauma, illness, workplace issues, and relationship struggles. So people who are resilient are often said to bounce back after experiencing adversity. And so that is really poignant and powerful for each of us, myself moving through experiences of trauma and hardship, and I'm sure you guys exactly have the exact same thing. Your stories of resilience, whether they're small or really big, are stories of success. And I really encourage you to see yourself as a success story of resilience, someone who is in the process of working through it, finding ways to bounce back, I suppose, or find your way through some of those tough moments. And remembering that it is a skill we all need, and being through the tough stuff is being human. Research shows that this capacity to, I suppose, cope may just ease symptoms of anxiety and depression and improve overall quality of life. And that individuals can learn resilience through different methods, such as mindfulness, and all of the different therapies, I suppose, that Bon is offering you in this course or in the
module. It's a fascinating piece of equipment.
Work with.
This is totally foreign to me. That's why it's exciting, but at the same time, I'm a bit trepidation, thinking, oh, what have I put myself in for?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm take this off here.
Or can I?
I can see that I can unscrew these. And this is a kind of hinge at the back. This should open up. It's incredibly heavy. First thing I've got to do is look at every detail of this and study it intently, so I've got a good understanding how it was meant to function before I take anything apart. Very important.
Mhm. Oh, cool. I think we fixed it. Sorry. All good. All okay? Everyone's good? Thank you, lovely. So perfect, all good. So yes, so all of the therapies that you're accessing are all ways in which you can build resilience, but I have a few nice ones for you today, and just a few extra things to reflect on. So resilience can offer an opportunity for growth. Dr. Sarah Porter is a psychologist. She's American, but I quite liked that she kind of said that by cultivating resilience, individuals may bounce forward in the face of stress and adversity with a little more wisdom and awareness of their tenacity and personal growth. And she kind of likens this to what they refer to as the 7 C's of resilience. So I thought we'd talk about your 7 C's today and kind of see where you might fit in. And so kind of in partnership with many different kind of research projects across the world, the 7 C's were created. And so people with high levels of resilience demonstrate the 7 C's or some of them, or, I'll absolutely say sometimes I demonstrate like all of these and sometimes none of them. And I think different things affect us differently based on our past, but it doesn't mean we don't have them within us to draw upon. So one of the 7 C's is competence. So if you are resilient, then one quality that you might have or someone around you might have that competence. You know you are capable and you have the skills to handle this. And sometimes that's hard to find within us if we feel really rattled. I definitely have felt like in my work life, sometimes, different people's opinions or evaluations have really rocked my own like inner confidence. But if I can come back to that confidence and that competence, like I studied this, I know this, I can handle this, I can move forward, I can learn and I can grow. Competence is one of those things that helps us find that sense of resilience. I am capable of this. I can do hard things. Really lovely, lovely affirmation to take today. If all you wrote down was like, I can do hard things, it's you have done them, you can continue to do them. The second is confidence, when that's one big word, I think like even Bond's done whole sessions on something that, it's a loaded word. But in this sense, just something simple, a simple definition for confidence in terms of resilience is just believing in your strengths and your abilities. And so by being in a course like this, I really want you to reflect on the fact that you need to just dig deep, that you have that confidence, you can learn, you can listen, you can, tap in, you can make notes, you can try new things. Like having the confidence to try new things is in itself another one of those like big C's for your resilience. So you probably have it in you, maybe sometimes not always like at the forefront, but reach and dig deep for that. Somebody who is more resilient, another key word here is connection. This comes up in so many pieces of research. So in terms of like putting some of the content together, I looked at academic journals, I've looked at aspects of reading from Brene Brown, looking at so many aspects, and every single one comes back to this idea of connection. And so having a support network is really important for resilience, because it means that that you can go somewhere and you are not alone. And that creates a sense of security that you can move through this. And if having a network or a connection is something that you personally might find difficult or something that you wanted to kind of work on, it's definitely out there for you. So this is a community that you're part of. You can absolutely reach out, connect, share as you move through different layers of of content, you have a community right here. But looking around you, who are those friends, old friends, new friends, who can you reach out to? If there's somebody, family, friends that are family, work colleagues, what through stress, through some hardships and challenges, a problem shared is a problem solved. Most often, being able to voice it rather than keeping things in as secret is the most important thing in being resilient. It's talking, it's opening, it's having somebody else know that you feel this way so that you have that ability to know that you're not alone. Because our heads play tricks on us sometimes during those hard times. There is this little voice that makes us feel like you're the only one feeling this way, or you feel it's so stupid that I think this way. I have that voice in my head myself. You can't help it. It's a human characteristic. But the second I go and say to my husband, hey, look, I'm kind of struggling, like my anxiety is a little bit high. This is kind of on my mind. This is something that we're struggling with, and this is something that I really want to move forward with. It starts to kind of open up a very different place to move forward and to find resilience, to find that little bit of bouncing. I don't like the phrase bounce back. I'm not going to lie. Bounce back comes with resilience, but I feel like you don't just bounce back to where you are. There's a change that happens, but I feel like it allows you to move through it. And I think maybe that's a better phrase, if you like that better. But for me, I don't think we need to bounce back to anything, but it does, that sense of resilience, is that idea that you are able to continue to move forward and feel a sense of mental strength and toughness as we go through the tough stuff. Another one is, another C is character. And so in terms of resilience, character means staying true to you, your character, and character is your values and your beliefs. And I think that that's really powerful. So you will find resilience and you'll be able to move through something if you know a little bit more about your boundaries and who you are and what you believe in, and you're able to voice your truth. And I think that's a really interesting C for resilience. I didn't expect it to pop into that category, but genuinely just staying true to your values, true to your beliefs, that I can see the snowball effect. It'll make you feel more confident. It allows you to see your competence, maybe allows you to move forward through and connect with other people and speak a bit more about things because in your heart of hearts that feels right. And moving through to the next bit is like having a sense of purpose. The C, sorry, is contribution. So having a sense of purpose and knowing that you have the power to positively impact other people is really, really great in terms of resilience. In particular, I kind of, if you'd missed the first section, absolutely no issues. I'm so sorry about RIT and the Facebook thing tonight. But I started the session talking about reflecting on you and your story and your trauma and your past, and how, if you were to write a story about you, even if it's like, take yourself away and you're a writer and you are getting to know you and you write your story about a story of resilience. I mean, how empowering is that? And that in itself starts to create that knowing. And if you did ever feel compelled to share that story, you can positively impact on others. You don't always have to contribute to be resilient, but sometimes, maybe resilience comes, I feel like something in my life where like I had a lot of loss in my past to Alzheimer's and cancer. So contribution there for me for that sense of resilience has been a little bit of, raising awareness, maybe doing a run, something that level of like maybe turning some of that negativity and giving it back, so the contribution can fit into that category as well. But just interesting, how do we move through hardship? How do we move through trauma? How do we move through loss? How do we move through, the challenges, the stressful things, the financial issues? How do we get through each day without feeling that overwhelm, stress, and anxiety? And how do we continue to cultivate that sense of resilience? And, these are some of your key ideas. Another word, which starts with a C, one of your other 7 Cs, is coping. So knowing how to manage your stress. And I'm going to go through loads of those sort of strategies with you. One in particular that I find really cool, with kind of just drawing like tennis balls. So if you did have a piece of paper or something you could scribble on tonight, that would be really cool in a bit. But it's not like a long note, but it's a really nice activity. And the last one is control. And it's understanding. It's not about controlling everything, but it's understanding, what choices you have, and acting accordingly, knowing your choices, knowing your consequences, and finding something that you can control in times of adversity sometimes helps. So I think, looking back at those 7 C's, it just says like the 7 C's: competence, confidence, connection, character, maybe making a contribution, finding skills for coping, and maybe kind of reflecting on what can I control, what is out of my control, how can I find like a step to move me forward. These are all things that create a sense of resilience in a human being. And I think that that's a really nice sort of starting point for us to reflect on in terms of this keyword. Yeah. So I just say, resilience is something that not only do we need to kind of find in ourselves, but it's really important to foster as well. Like for parents and caregivers, fostering resilience has become an essential part of kind of, raising children in modern days, working through the challenges we've all faced, moving through a global pandemic. We've all been able to manage that stress. So we've all been a success story of resilience. How do we tap into the success rather than that dull feeling of whatever the challenge might be? All right. So we're going to move into some of those coping mechanisms that I spoke about. And I think that that's where I really want to take the next section of our session. So talked about what resilience is. We've looked at a little bit of research on those C's. Now, how do we we're going to tap into the coping a little bit on ways in which we can kind of find reality and manage our stress. If you have a piece of paper, I'm going to invite you just to kind of start, make sure that you've got a little bit of space. Doesn't matter where it goes, like, or how neat it is. This is a great written activity to just get you to kind of be mindful and gain a little bit of experience in just kind of breaking down everything in your world at the moment and finding some sense of calm. So I want you to think about this. In a minute, we're going to draw 10 circles, like balls. Imagine them like tennis balls. All right. So I've done a little example for you here. It's not the best circles, but just 10 circles. Just start with that. Doesn't matter where they go, what that looks like. 10 circles somewhere there. If you don't use them all, no worries. If you want more as you go on, add them. But 10 circles to start. So I want you to imagine they're like tennis balls. I'll give you a minute to do it, or if anyone's on catch up, grab a pen and paper. Just see if you can get you 10 circles. Cheers, everyone. Nice cup of tea this evening. Starting to feel that little bit of end of August. I love a little cup of tea in the autumn. It's my favorite. Now, you've probably done your 10 circles. I'm going to get you to think about this. So I'll write it in the chat as well. But in the circles, there's 3 things that you can fill in there. No right or wrong answer. Just think a little bit about one, either words that describe you, how you would describe like yourself, a role that you play in life. And I'll give you some examples in a moment, or things that you like to do. That sort of thing. Things that you like to do. I should have labeled them 1, 2, 3, but it doesn't matter where they go. I want you just to see if you can fill in those circles. So mine says, one of my roles that I play in life is kind of running a business. I put homekeeper. I couldn't think of a better word, but somebody that keeps your home. You can put individually roles in there like cleaning, laundry. You could make as many circles as you want, but all these things are things that we need to do, or things that we have as a plate that we're spinning type thing. I put things like I'm a wife and I'm a mum, and I actually individually put a mum to a 4-year-old, a mum to my 2-year-old, because I think it's two very different roles. um anything at all. I put I'm a driver, I drive a car. I put very simple things, a cook. You could put things that you like to do. So anybody who knows me at all, I love kind of yoga if I can find the time for it besides teaching. But all of these sorts of things, kind of see if you can fill in your 10 circles. And as always, if you want to add more, great. If you can't fill them all in, it's absolutely fine. It's just to get you kind of thinking a little, yeah, things that describe you, a role that you play, or things that you like. That's it. Absolutely. Really nice activity, really simple. Good, good. And then when you're done, so no rush if you're still thinking. I know everybody works at their own pace, but if you are done, I'm going to get you to take your pen or whatever you've got for writing and just draw a big circle kind of around your 10 things, because 10 things is a lot. Even things is a lot. And I guess the image here that we're looking for is that this is kind of a picture. I mean, I'm sure you could sit and add to this later, but it's a picture of who you are. A picture of your kind of human experience, things that are going on. And a lot of times when we're in the thick of it, it can feel like one big thing is your whole identity. So, sounds really silly, but like I was so down and really negative. Like I put driver there because I like really silly, like knocked my wing mirror off like a few months ago, but it cost so much. It was such a pain. And, all of like the courtesy car and the kids and it sounds so silly. The time, the money, but I really beat myself up. I was like, oh, I should have known better. That was so silly. But even like that small thing, like for that afternoon or the next few days created anxiety for me. It actually genuinely did. I'm still on my own journey, even though I'm coaching and leading. We're in it together, guys. We're in the human experience together. So we'll be like raw. This is a very small example, but I had to find like some level of resilience in that. And this is an activity that helped me go, hang on, there's a lot of other things going on here. There's a lot of things that I'm doing all right. So what I want you to do here, this is terrible. I cannot draw. This is meant to be some sort of like tennis racket with your tennis balls. I'm sure you could draw a better tennis racket. But if you wanted to draw that in the corner or somewhere on the side or just write tennis, the idea is that if one ball drops, imagine like even a professional tennis player, like they're sat there in practice and they're going to miss one or they're going to hit it wrong or it's going to go the other side, maybe two, maybe three, but then they're going to start hitting them again and then just keep practicing and moving through. This is a really beautiful way of looking at life and telling yourself that it is okay if you drop the ball once in a while, because it's not your whole identity. It is just one small bit. It's not the end of the world if you took the wing mirror off, or if you're struggling with grief, if you're, maybe, sometimes I'm, getting lost in other aspects of life. And there's things that I feel like I need to work on. It's about finding resilience and going, do you know what? It's okay if I drop that ball. It's okay because I could just pick that ball back up, because that is part of me. But right now it might not just be at the forefront, or it might not be something that I'm winning at. So I think this is a great exercise just to bring in that perspective and go, hang on a minute. There's so much more to me. There's so many things here that even if I'm dropping them, they're still part of my life. They're still in my circle. They're still part of my identity. And when it feels right, when I'm feeling strong, I can continue to move through that. So this is a great like visual, I think. Hopefully, I know everything's like a buffet, you know, you might love things or you might find them harder to connect with. But yeah, you can't possibly be expected to hit all of the balls all at once as well. And I think that's really important. You can't hit all of those balls at once. So listening to that as your analogy, it's not just about dropping one ball. You can't be hitting every ball at once. So remember, you know, just one at a time, deep breaths. And if something is going awry, please find that resilience to look back, maybe think, oh, what were all my tennis balls? Because there's so many and I cannot, you know, keep them all going at once. It's impossible. And that's okay. And that is okay. You know, giving your permission, you are enough, you're doing your best. It's all there. It's all good. So yeah, I really like that as a written task for coping and for just bringing your thinking into that real present mindful space. Amazing. All right. So my next bit is to look at 5 other science-based strategies for the coping. Another one is very much what I kind of spoke to you about at the beginning, a little theme in the session. I believe and I understand not everybody in the room is a writer. So if journaling is not for you, that is absolutely okay. But I think the very first, you know, science-based skill that I'd add to our tennis ball technique is change the narrative, change the story. And my challenge for you, whether it's in your mind, whether you were able to do it in a mind map, maybe you really like to write, could you actually rewrite your story to a story of resilience? Like, can you look at that? Because when something bad happens, even if it's a small story, when something bad happens, we often relive that event over and over and over in our heads and we rehearse the pain. This process is rumination. I think myself and Bon have done quite a few talks on this or areas around it. It's like a cognitive spinning wheels, isn't it? We get in this like hamster wheel and we can't get off of it. And it doesn't move us forward into healing and growth. It's very normal. It's human to do it. But the practice of writing, or expressive writing, can move us forward through that and help us gain new insights on challenges in our lives. And all it is maybe like sitting down, grabbing a pen, and once you kind of feel settled in a situation, can you kind of free write? And the goal is to write something down on paper. It doesn't have to create like a memoir masterpiece at all, but can you write about a moment where you overcame something? Can you write about that? And it doesn't have to be the situation you're struggling with, but can you mind map it? Can you put like, I was resilient when, and finish that sentence? Um, really nice, really nice activity. You know, I was resilient when, I struggled with blank and I was able to like overcome it. And I did that by, and reminding yourself and finding and rewriting those stories, you know, finding moments that were traumatic, were darker, were challenging. You know, I was resilient in this moment. Write it down, and then maybe take some time just to free write, you know, about how you feel, and just see where the writing takes you, or see where your mind map takes you. If writing something down in a big long paragraphs is not your game, please do not worry. But maybe just a mind map, like, I was resilient when, and reminding yourself of that, bringing yourself into that present moment is such an awesome, I suppose, coping mechanism. It's this concept, and the phrase is changing the narrative, flipping your script, reminding yourself of that, and then maybe seeing if you can draw connections between that and an experience that you might be finding challenging now, which I think is really interesting. So just gonna have a little sip. But yeah, don't be afraid to get some words on paper and write your story, because you're all success stories. You're all stories, you know, of people that have moved through adversity. You know, you are stories that people would probably be able to draw upon and learn from, you know, who might be a few steps back. So, you know, be confident, be proud of yourself, be proud of being here in your journey. Another science-based one is one way they say it's not maybe everyone's one, but facing your fears is a thing, isn't it? So practices like facing your fears is helpful to help you kind of move through those struggles. And I had it could be something small, like I don't call it small, but something like public speaking. The more you do it, hopefully the more the body recognize that this is not like you need to be in fight or flight. But when I think of overcoming a fear, I personally, when I think about, trauma situation, I remember for years and years, because, without oversharing, because the experience that I personally had was, something that I had buried. It took a really long time for me to recognize like it was worth talking about. It was something that I needed to share. And the very first time I opened up and just faced and said to somebody like, this is something that is really big to me, and this is something I've never spoken about. Once I unleashed the secrets, the things that I had created such a shameful narrative around, facing the fear, number one was just saying it. Or I remember writing it on a piece of paper and ripping it up and like burning it. But even that, being able to slowly start to face like this, this thing has happened and I want to move through it is really powerful. But it could be, facing fears in any way, shape or form that will help you build resilience. It's called often exposure therapy, but I would definitely, take that in a way that suits you. I wouldn't go straight to, having a fear of spiders and, you know, jumping straight into something, but maybe finding one baby step that might help you move through that is in itself kind of working in a resilient way. Yeah. Another one is practicing self-compassion. That's another surefire, scientifically driven way to kind of find those coping skills, that C that we found. And self-compassion is just a word for reminding yourself that you're doing your best. So I do think that our tennis ball activity fits into practice of self-compassion. So yeah, it could just be just recognizing. So self-compassion involves compassion to yourself, confronting your own suffering with an attitude of warmth and kindness, without judgment. And it's that old notion of treat yourself the way that you would treat your best friend, you would treat a young child asking you for advice, like how would you treat that person? And it's always with warmth and kindness. So why not treat ourselves with warmth and kindness? And I think that that's really, really powerful. Mindfulness fits within this. So that present moment thinking, remembering that you're not alone fits into self-compassion. Everybody experiences deep and painful human emotions. And although the causes may be very different, you can say to yourself, suffering is a part of life. We all feel this way. We all struggle in our lives, but we can move through this. We have moved through this. We can do hard things. Those are really nice sentences. I can do hard things. I am not alone. We are all in this human experience together. And finally, just something simple like being kind to yourself. So may I give myself compassion? May I accept myself as I am? May I be patient? All of these things are just really kind phrases. And they're affirmations that you can repeat. When I definitely find, when I first tried meditation, I found like a positive affirmation really helped, I can and I will, I am a good person. These are limiting beliefs I'd created. And I try to flip that script from I'm not to I am a good person. So finding resilience is also practicing all of the skills and things, that you come back to over and over in these sessions. Can't get away from the fact that taking time out is powerful. mindfulness. And finally, another one is meditation, which I'd like to offer you a meditation at the end of this session. So after I'm done kind of talking about this and wrap up my chat in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to offer you around 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes of a guided live meditation, so that maybe you can leave this session with a really calm, soft nervous system in order to move through things. A lot of talk is around how if we can manage to find a calm nervous system, and meditation helps with that. And meditation can just be deep breathing. It could be, candle gazing. It can be so many things. It doesn't have to be this traditional sit there and feel uncomfortable with your thoughts without any focus. It could be just repeating an affirmation. But it says, meditation is really powerful. And when I began to practice meditation, I started to find that I was able to make sense of things better. And instead of living in the fog, I kind of was like, okay, Megan, it's time just to turn it off and stop. It's time for me to just watch like a fly on the wall. And all of a sudden, like struggles, challenges, hardships that I was really struggling to find, like, what do I do with this? Things that I'd ruminated over for maybe months. The second I started to bring in meditation, I really started to find answers quicker. I started to learn to find some of my C's, my confidence and my competence again. I was able to, find ways to make a contribution. So I did find that meditations helped me get back to my 7 C's. It was coping, it was connection, it was all of it. So I would love to give you an opportunity just to stop tonight, if that's cool. But if you did need to take off, there's lots in your module 3 and in some of the recordings from my sessions. But one simple one is finding the body scan. I think that that's a really nice one to just stop and relax and just see if you can tap out of everything in order for the brain to reset and file, make sense of the emotion, make sense of all the stimulus you've taken in, and then allow you to figure out what your next step is with a bit more clarity rather than the fog and the emotion kind of overriding what you actually want. So, yeah. And finally is cultivating forgiveness. And I remember feeling a sense of like anger in my life towards people, under certain chapters, like, why didn't you do that? Or why weren't you like that? But the moment that I was able to cultivate, like, do you know, I'm gonna believe in the goodness of the world, that you did your best in the situation at the time. I forgive you. I might not have to go say that to that person. But if you can cultivate a sense of forgiveness, it doesn't mean you need to regenerate unhealthy relationships. It just means for you, you can find a sense of like, that's not for me, but I can forgive and move forward. Forgiveness is another way in which you can move through. And research said that one of these really interesting pieces that help develop resilience. And it's quite a powerful practice, because if we hold on to grudges, if we hold on, then it does sometimes hold us back and keeps us in that space of rumination. So food for thought. However you want to kind of play with those concepts, but a few ideas for coping and things to reflect on, however you wanted to kind of build that maybe in, maybe even if there's one little golden nugget in there. So yeah, that's going to take us just to the kind of last little bit here. So in terms of resilience, it is, let's go back to our definition. So resilience it refers to an individual's ability to recover from life's challenges and hardships, such as trauma, illness, workplace issues, and relationship struggles. And people who are resilient are often said to bounce back after experiencing adversity, but I like to say continue to grow and move through rather than bounce back. And a quick recap of our 7 C's: competence, confidence, connection, character, contribution, coping, and control. Things that we all have within us as human beings, but sometimes it's just coming back to that to help us find that resilient self, that resilient human, space, and allow us to move through adversity. With that being said, I'm going to take you through a lovely guided meditation as one of the coping mechanisms. And within that, I'm going to build in a little bit of our affirmations. So I'm just going to change my seating here. I'm going to build in a little bit of our affirmations from the session. I'm going to invite you to close the eyes. So if you're sat on a chair, just lean back. If you're on your sofa, get cozy. If you feel comfortable, you can turn the lights out, or you can stay exactly where you are. You don't need lights out for relaxing. And I'll invite you just to soften in and close the eyes or look down if you feel comfortable. Beautiful. And as you begin to just kind of settle, I want you to imagine that you're just taking time out right now to reset and give yourself permission to let go of the day. I invite you to just slowly begin to breathe in and slowly breathing out. Nice. Just allow the breath to slowly come in and allow the breath to slowly draw. And take a few more deep breaths, just a little slower than your natural rhythm. Inhale. And exhale just a little slower. One more time. Inhale. And slowly, slowly exhale. As you begin to relax in the chair, sofa, maybe even fall into bed at this point if you press pause. Just take a moment to check in. If you're feeling any feeling of stress or tightness, even if the breath feels a little shallow, just set a little intention to soften. Give yourself permission to let go of all of the things on your list to do. And just hit the reset button. Stop and recharge. Allow the body to have some time and space to reset as well. Relaxing the forehead, really releasing any sort of tension you might be holding between the eyebrows. Breathing in and slowly breathing in. Relaxing the eyelids even more and the creases alongside those eyes. Allowing the jaw to separate, feeling a little more softness. Rather than clenching in the teeth, just release. Release that tension and stress. Breathing in. And slowly breathing it out. Allow the back body to feel supported by the space you're leaning on. Allow the shoulders to melt down away from the ears and release any tension from the shoulders to the elbows and the elbows to the wrists. Releasing any tension held in the hands, letting go in both the thumbs. Breathing in and out, letting go in both pointer fingers, middle fingers, ring fingers, and your baby fingers. Allow the hands to just truly, utterly relax. For all that you've accomplished today is enough. Opening doors, completing work, messaging, showing kindness, preparing food, whatever it is you've done with the hands, they deserve that space. You deserve this time and space to just stop. Breathing in and out. To just breathe. Allow the rest of the body to soften, releasing in the hips and the hips to the knees and the knees to the ankles, and releasing the arches of the feet and the toes. Allow yourself to feel completely, utterly relaxed from the crown of the head all the way down to the tips of the hands and further on to the tips of the toes. Releasing in the glutes and the hips, the knees and the ankles, the arches of the feet. Breathing in and slowly breathing out. And as you begin to soften, just want you to remember that in all adversity and hardship, remember you are not alone. That you too are experiencing human emotion. Your causes may be different, your story may be very different, but your ability to be resilient is strong. As you rest and reset, reminding yourself that you can do hard things. And I invite you to take one hand and place it on the heart and one hand and relax it on the belly. Repeating maybe in your mind after me, may I give myself compassion today. May I show myself kindness. May I accept myself as I am. Breathing in. I accept myself as I am. And finally, I am enough. Despite the hardships, the trauma, breathing in and out, repeating after me. I am enough, just as I am. You are enough to tackle all the waves of your life. Breathing in and slowly breathing out. Invite you to stay there as long as you like. Maybe recognizing if there's been any change at all in the body and nervous system. And where this plays a part in resilience is sometimes it's decisions and thinking come from a softer place. If we come at them from a space where the body is regulated and the mind is clear. I'm going to leave you there to rest and reset. If you have any questions, obviously, please let me know. We'll stay on the video a little bit longer. But I wish you a beautiful week ahead. And thank you so much for logging in. Peace and love, guys.